lake wasn't filtered in the old days. When you turned on your tap back then, fish would take a joyride, swim through the pipes under the lake, land in your kitchen. It was like drinking out of an aquarium. So everything that Burnham did for the fair was to get away from that and give you the city of the future. And that temporary city was so successful to make it a reality. On July 4th, 1909, Daniel Burnham unveiled the plan of Chicago, the beginning of urban planning here. He saw the river as the focal point of the city, writing grand and noble architecture should rise up along the riverbanks and be followed by grand and noble boulevards as well, which today are Wacker Drive and Michigan Avenue. We'll see those later on. We're going to see today how Chicago literally gained the title birthplace of the skyscraper in the late 1800s. You know, that was less planned, more of an accident, what we call the Great Conflagration, the turning point in Chicago history, friends, October 8, 1871. I'd write that down. It will be on the test. October 8, 1871, the date of the Great Chicago Fire. On that day, a fire supposedly started, me boys, by Daisy, Mrs. O'Leary's cow on the west side, kicking over a kerosene lantern, causing a fire that took out 17,450 buildings in about 2 days. But it was because of that fire, architects and engineers all flocked into Chicago to rebuild. You had a blank slate upon which to try new building technique. And you see, after the fire, you weren't allowed to rebuild with wood in downtown Chicago. That left you with masonry. But there's a problem with brick if you go very high. If you have a load-bearing exterior brick wall for support, every time you add a new floor, your base wall gets 6 inches wider, eats up all your floor space. Looking for more efficient building materials, therefore, the evolution of the architectural frame happened in Chicago when William LeMaire Ginty, the Civil War bridge builder and engineer, introduced iron and steel grid frame, like you see on Lake Point Tower, a skeleton. You see, that was a major change from a load-bearing exterior support wall to an internal skeleton. It goes up to 12 stories, paves the way for the modern skyscraper. 1885 to 1910, these steel frame buildings become known as the Chicago School of Architecture. Father of Chicago School, Louis Sullivan, describes it thusly: your building should be like a Greek column, a tripartite division of base, shaft, and capital, every inch a proud and soaring thing. Now, the Chicago School influences the birthplace of modernism, the Bauhaus, a very famous art compound in 1920s Germany, long before it became a 1980s post-punk industrial band with the same name. And the third record of Bauhaus, taught modernism later, right now in the river history, Chicago. The name of the river comes from the Native American Chicago, which translates roughly as the place of the wild onions. You can smell the garlic and onions going along the banks. 1673, Father Marquette and Louis Joliet arrived here exploring for France. They looked at the river and said, let's go home. They didn't go home with a river guide. A 10-year-old Native American boy showed them a shortcut. That at the end of the south branch of this river, you could portage your canoe to the southern flowing Des Plaines River, which flows into the Illinois River, and then that flows into Big Muddy, the Mississippi. So that meant Chicago would become the critical link in a waterway system connecting the entire continental United States. The 1848 Illinois Michigan Canal made Chicago boomtown by 1890. A million people here. But a million people, and back then we were hog butchers of the world, as the great poet Carl Sandburg named us, because of our Union stockyards on the south side, immortalized in Upton Sinclair's novel, The Jungle. Well, all the meat packing plants, everybody living here uses the river as a sewer. That pollutes our drinking source, the lake. A good portion of Chicago dies from typhoid and cholera, repeated epidemics. So to stop the river polluting the lake in 1900, we dig a new canal and get smart. The Chicago Sanitary and Ship Canals dug off the South Branch so deep, we took out more dirt than the Panama Canal, and using gravity as an aid, we caused the river to reverse direction, flow uphill backwards. Yay! We saved our drinking water, and we sent the pollution south to St. Louis, Missouri instead. Apologies to my friends from St. Louis for that. Hey, on our left, from the young woman architect, Jeannie Gang, her company Studio Gang, 1,191 feet, eventually the Vista Towers. They'll top off around 2020, and when they're done, Jeannie Gang will have the title, the tallest building in the world by a woman-led architectural firm. I think she'll take that title away from herself, because she won it earlier for her Aqua building at 859 feet. That's the one behind the Triangular Swiss Hotel. It's that one with those crazy curvy balconies. It looks like a wave. Now, Louis Sullivan of the Chicago School once said, form follows function. In other words, the use of your building might determine a little bit of the design. Let's apply that to Jeannie's building. The function for Jeannie with the Aqua building, it's hotel and condo floors. She wanted to make sure everyone in this densely packed plaza had a unique view of Chicago. So the form, the balconies were determined by working from the outside in. In other words, first Jeannie would find a really great view, say Millennium Park downtown. And then using models, they'd point a laser pointer from the park to Jeannie's building. If the laser went directly in the window, everything's copacetic. You had a view. But if the laser hit the wall, Jeannie picks up the balcony and moves it 2 feet left or right. There's spaces where you might be as high as 50 stories up. You walk out 12 feet, but boy, what a view up there. Form follows function. Now when we come under this bridge, you just get a glimpse of a building with an almost musk-like Moorish yellow onion skin dome. It is the Hotel Intercontinental over on Michigan Avenue. It began its life in 1930 as the Medina Athletic Club. It was a project of the philanthropic group who like to refer to themselves as the Sons of the East, the Medina Shriners. There it is coming into view once again, the building with the dome there. If you see it from Michigan Avenue, the bas-relief carving shows the architect's plans, showing their plans to the Pharaoh on the side of the building, about 3/4 up. Originally a steampunk thing, they wanted to use that as a landing pad for blimps, airships, zeppelins, but you might remember a little thing called the Hindenburg, and the dirigible fell out of favor. It was never used as a landing pad for blimps. Now, Mies van der Rohe, the modernist. Mies van der Rohe comes to Chicago from the Bauhaus in Germany. Illinois Institute of Technology right here. He's thinking new country building stripped to their bare essential. Modernists were utilitarian and functional. They were all about expressing structure. If, no decoration, no ornamentation. Here's a prime example of modern fidelity building. So you will find highly articulated structure, attention to detail, and 99% of the time a box. You can call that building Miesian because Mies van der Rohe is so associated with that pure box look. Now if I put decoration or ornamentation on my building, or heaven forbid, some colors other than black or white, a modernist would scream at me, "You're being bourgeois, superfluous, dishonest." They'd shun me, I'd be kicked out of the modern club. They were all about the structure. Now coming up on the right, the clock tower, friends. London has Big Ben, Paris has Eiffel Tower, I'm in Chicago. I'll take the clock tower, the one and only Wrigley Building, commissioned by chewing gum king William Wrigley Jr., who was premiering Juicy Fruit Gum at the Columbian Exposition 1893. So he brought the fair home, 1921, North Bay added 1924. That's the Beaux-Arts look at the World's Fair. The Spanish Renaissance's influence on the clock tower, modeled after the 11th century Giralda Tower in Seville in Spain. We're approaching now our Grand Boulevard, Michigan Avenue. We Chicagoans still call it Boulevard Mich. Boulevard It was inspired by the Grand Boulevards of Paris. In fact, Daniel Burnham once said Chicago should be called Paris on the Prairie. Well, what happened to the bridge? Let's take it to the bridge. The bridge itself, did you notice we named DuSable Bridge because we will honor the founder of Chicago, our first permanent resident, the French-speaking fur trader from Haiti, Jean-Baptiste Pont du Sable. He started a fur trading empire right there, man, in 1779. Moving on our right was Spire from Adrian Smith's Goodmore, Owings and Merrill, 2009. The new second tallest building in Chicago, Trump International Hotel and Tower. Now, it is 98 stories, 1,171 feet, but that's not its entire height, because notice the architect stuck a needle on the roof, a spire. And when you rate the height of all the tall buildings in the world, you turn to the council. They sound like a Monty Python comedy sketch. They're called the Council on Tall Buildings in the Urban Habitat. And the Council on Tall Buildings in the Urban Habitat recognizes spires. That's an organic element of design. The architect meant it, so you include it in the height. And if you have a river entrance, you're allowed to pull your measuring tape down to the lowest pedestrian entrance. You don't have to measure from the street. So when you throw those two additions in, Trump International Hotel and Tower is now 1,388 feet, second only to our Willis Tower. You see the Beaux-Arts influence of the fair yet again, the beautiful building with the cupola dome. Last of the Beaux-Arts wonders before the Depression hit, the Jewelers Building, 1926. Inspired by a 15th century Italian monastery, the Sotosa de Pavia, but built here for the diamond trade. Back in 26, you could drive your Model T Ford filled with diamonds, lower whacker right in your basement. Your car was lifted by elevator. You run up and meet it. You retrieve your diamonds and you run through the building like a happy squirrel. You feel really safe. Safety's a big thing. This is prohibition. Alcohol was illegal, but I tell you a secret. The city of Chicago was never dry. You could have a drink during Prohibition in an illegal tavern called a speakeasy. Rumor has it there was one right below that dome. We can't prove that, but as soon as Prohibition was lifted, the Stratosphere Lounge was ready and open for business in the same spot. On our right, Ludwig Mies van der Spino American Commission, AMA Plaza, 1971. I bet you've heard Mies's expression, less is more. You see why modernism is often called minimalism? Strip away the decorations, celebrate the structure. Skeleton, skin, space. Skeleton is your frame, skin is your glass curtain wall, space is a square, unless you're the rebel modernist. Burt from Goldberg never did like squares, hence the curvilinear Marina City Towers coming on the right, earning their nickname the Corn Cob Towers in the 60s. Often the student rejects the teacher. Goldberg had studied with Mies van der Rohe, but he rejected boxes in favor of circular design to bring people together, referring to Marina City as curvilinear flower form, a core-like stem housing elevators and utilities, the rings like pebbles from the base sill. A complete city with 4 restaurants, a bowling alley, a swimming pool, a bank, office space, that George Jetson parking, and your living space upstairs. You see, Goldberg is working at the height of the 1960s, the mass migration, a lot of the middle class abandoning the city, but a certain portion, like the janitors union, wanted to live right along the river downtown. So Goldberg was working on making affordable middle class living right here on the river, because a lot of people who work in the city don't want to commute. They wanted to live right where they work. But they wanted 24-hour urban living, and this area was totally industrial. So he put everything at home instead. The Westin Hotel on your right began as the Japanese Nikko Hotel, elements of the roof garden remaining. And the Heinz Building, Bruce Graham, Skidmore, Owings and Merrill, the glass box on your right, good example of what eventually would become known as international style. The international school modernists had arrived at the viewpoint, you know, we have to forget 200 years of wonderful architectural history. We don't know what businesses of the future might need. So let's be totally safe and predictable and stick everywhere around the world in a one-size-fits-all, no historic precedent glass box. And just keep doing it over and over. And that